Good morning, everybody. Good to see you all. So we'll begin. I think on Sunday mornings, you all have been beginning by chanting the the 5 recollections. Yeah, which is on page 26 of your chant book, if you would like to do that together. And I've also posted it in the chat for everyone on Zoom. This is just a way to bring in some of the deepest wisdom in a different way. Sometimes chanting can have a different kind of resonant quality in the body and heart. And so without a lot of efforting, we can receive the teachings in this way, just to kind of either receive what other people are saying or reflect on the words as you hear them, or to chant along. 26, is that right? Yeah, okay, great. I am of the nature to age. I have not gone beyond aging. I am of the nature to sicken. I have not gone beyond sickness. I am of the nature to die. I have not gone beyond dying. All that is mine, beloved and pleasing, will become otherwise, will become separated from me. I am the owner of my karma, heir to my karma, born of my karma, related to my karma, abide supported by my karma. Whatever karma shall do, for good or for ill, of that I will be the heir. Thus we should frequently recollect. Inviting the words to settle into the heart. And feeling into this balance of energy, where the heart is gently interested in the present moment, in being awake to experience, but also relaxed enough, restful enough not to demand anything, not to expect life should be any particular way. We're interested in knowing how it actually is for us. What's it like to have this body just as it is? This heart mind just as it is. And yet we're also not asking for this heart, for this body to be anything other than this. We might have deep aspirations to be skillful or kind, or stable right in the middle of life. But we actually find those good qualities because we're honest. Not afraid to reckon with the unskillful or pain of any kind. Not afraid to see the mind that wants so much more than this. To find a way to accept that and to be relaxed with it right in that moment. So these energies of alertness and ease come together and offer support no matter what the conditions are. It can be useful to drop in a little wisdom reminder from now and then, every now and then. Like, oh, it's like this. It's really like this for me. Or perhaps what the heart needs is a reminder that this heart knows how to care. And we might drop in, can this be okay? Sweetie, can this be okay? Right now, just this. Everything is workable. Nothing out of bounds, nothing off limits. Just doing the bravest, most honest thing we could do with our lives. And that's reckon with the way it actually is. Let's continue in silence now. A minute to stretch your legs if you'd like. Is Lisa here? Oh, she's out there. Let me do. Yeah, I'm just gonna make an adjustment here. Right. You turn on the building fan, the air circulating. Well, once again, welcome. My name is Shelly Graf. I'm one of the guiding teachers here and a longtime student of Mark Nunberg's. Ooh, Mark, it's a little low. Okay. I'll speak up. Mark is usually leading the Sunday morning practice group. So if you're expecting to see him and you're surprised by that, he'll be back next week. He's away leading a retreat this weekend at our retreat center with Stacy McClendon. And when he's doing that, I'm usually here or someone is. I thought I'd share a little bit about mindfulness and effort, wise mindfulness and wise effort today. I lead the Wednesday evening practice group, and we've been studying the Eightfold Path for many months now. And if you're familiar with the Noble Eightfold Path, or even if you're not, it's where the Buddha gave us how-to instructions. It's the fourth of the Four Noble Truths, where the Buddha kind of laid out for us what our human predicament is. That we get that when we're not watching our minds, when we're not aware of our inner world, then it's often these moments of wanting or not wanting that actually create a lot of struggle for us. And when we can learn to attune to that, accept that this happens sometimes, and when we can feel that release of not clinging, then that's where we might experience freedom or liberation, the deepest kinds of liberation. And so in the fourth noble truth, the Buddha was like, okay, sweeties, if you want to know how to do this for yourselves, if you want to understand liberation or freedom or non-stress or ease, then here are these 8 ways to cultivate happiness. And they're meant to be integrated from the first to the 8th and all of them together. And so you'll see this word wise, and then the name of the path factor, wise view, wise intention are the first 2. So this word wise precedes all of the path factors, all of the pieces here. And when because the path, the full path evokes a kind of deepening wisdom, right? And it's in this wisdom that the heart really starts to understand what the Buddha was pointing out here, right, about our human predicaments. And so just to kind of paint a picture of the Noble Eightfold Path before I dig into these 2, I'll integrate wise effort and wise mindfulness a little bit. But there's 3 chunks or baskets or categories or something like that, right? The first chunk is what we might consider wisdom, the developing wisdom. the developing a wise view or wise vision, and wise intentions, what precedes all of our actions, how we engage our lives, our inner experience, the world. And then the second part of the second chunk is in relationship. Right? It's about developing ethical conduct in relationships with one another. So wise speech, right? All the ways that our speech in our body has an impact. So wise speech, wise action, and wise livelihood. These are the three here. And then the third chunk of the path is the mind cultivation part of the path, which we put great emphasis on here in the United States, right? Developing a calm, right? But that's only 1/3 of the path. And it's not actually just the development of calm, right? It's wise effort that supports a deepening kind of presence, which we might call wise mindfulness. And that stability of mindfulness, which we might call concentration. That's when mindfulness is strong and we're just more mindful more often, right? And so these path factors weave together and all come with the other. So when we say wise effort or wise mindfulness, we bring wisdom with it, and that wisdom that understands, oh, this isn't just to be taken out of context, right? This is actually, we need to understand this piece in combination with all the others. So we can use wise or we can use right. These are two common words that are translated from the Pali, which is sama, and then sati, which is mindfulness. For example, we can use complete or integrated as well as white. That's interesting. Right or wise. Yeah. So complete or integrated are words I really like, right? Because they tug on the whole path for me. So you can explore what words seem fitting for you too. So wise effort is a confusing topic. And so is wise mindfulness, actually. We can spend our whole lives trying to be mindful, and we should be cultivating habits of mindfulness, but we should also be cultivating this curiosity about like, what is that? What does it actually mean to be mindful or present or intimate, right? Or attuned, we might say, other words to describe what we're aiming for. And all of us want that, right? Want to be closer to the way it actually is. And sometimes, if we're honest, we want to escape the way it actually is into our practice, right? So we want to be able to see that when those shadows appear too. Right? So wise effort is this effort that we make to reckon with the way it actually is, to reckon with the truth. And that's what we mean by deepening presence. It's not some kind of an escapist move, right? To get out of our hearts and minds, or to find some nice, cool place to land for a little while. Although there are those nice, cool places to land for a little while, and we should appreciate them when we're here. But the point, right? The intention is not to avoid anything. It's actually to learn how to be with life as it is, life on life's terms, right? The heart as the heart actually is, the body as it actually is. And so this little chant that we often do at the beginning of this program, the one that we did today, remembering the 5 recollections. I'm the nature, this body, is of the nature to age, to sicken, to die, right? Those are deep realities that are with us all the time. But how many of us think about that unless we're in the middle of something that makes us think about that, right? It's not a part of we'd rather mostly avoid thinking about that reality, right? Which makes it so hard when we have to think about it, right? So what we're doing when we're practicing is actually reckoning with something that's deeply true, just like that. Or another deep truth is that, oh yeah, all of this that feels like such a personal thing is actually not personal at all. right? It's actually the coming together of causes and conditions that give rise to this moment that we're experiencing, this inner moment, and this inner moment that expresses itself in the outer world that we live in. So everything is as it's supposed to be. It may not be the way we want it to be, right? And that's okay. It doesn't prevent our movement, our engagement, our action, right? To actually reckon with the truth. That's the only way that we can actually engage in sincere ways, is if we know how it is first, right? Otherwise, we're just moving and doing related to the stories in our mind. And then everybody else is going, well, why are you doing that? This doesn't line up. Or at least some people tell us that, right? And we go, oh, wait a second, does it line up? Okay. And then we adjust. So the efforts that we make are in service of a deepening presence. And when we think of mindfulness, it's not, although it's not an escapist move, it is a protective move. Because that kind of protection of presence, you all know this, right? When we're actually being sincere with our efforts to be mindful, we show up in ways that we want to, or in ways that feel good to other beings, right? Some of you are parents, some of you are caregivers, some of you are coworkers, some of you are friends, some of us. And we know that when we really care about taking responsibility for what this heart is setting in motion in this moment, it matters. Even if it doesn't yield the benefits we want, we might do our very best and feel really deeply misunderstood. Right? And that might be hard to bear. But when we really look, we go, oh yeah, that was the best I could do right then. I really did my best, right? I was aware of what was moving in my heart. I was curious about what the impact might be. And then I just went for it. I did the best that I could. And that kind of sincerity feels good to us, right? So that protectiveness of mindfulness allows a kind of effort, allows for a kind of effort that's renewing. Right? It's renewing because we know, we're not going to get it right all the time. And we have no say over how the causes and conditions actually come together. We have some say over how we engage our own inner experience, but how it lands, we don't know. And so we just are willing to keep showing up, right, for ourselves and each other, like this, that arising and falling away moment by moment by moment. And that is a beautiful way to live. Right? Would you agree? Yes, a beautiful way to live. So effort, just when I say that, wise effort, or just the word effort, just allow whatever comes to mind to come to mind. Like, what does that mean to you right now? And so we want to, when we come to these teachings, we want to come with an understanding, somewhat of an understanding of what it means. Before we jump into what the Buddha meant, we got to know like where we are in all of this. Right? What is effort? When I say effort, what does it usually express in my heart? Usually for me, it expresses something like, well, you got to try harder. Got to do a little bit more, right? You got to pick it up or be better, be a little bit better, right? And that definitely flows through this white-bodied experience and conditioning here in the United States, or we're swimming in all this individualism and perfectionism. And, these are the kind of elements that our country was founded on. So we don't want to avoid seeing that. And also realize, that's not personal, right? So the way that I might understand effort might be slightly different than the way somebody else understands effort. And what might be needed to bring a more balanced effort to feel into this wise or complete or integrated way of making effort, is definitely includes how we come to effort, right? Includes all of that. And so our personal conditioning, what we've learned in our family systems, are we a kind of person that tends to lean towards like wanting to hang back, or avoid? Or are we a kind of person that tends to want to jump right in and get going? So we might learn what kind of move we need to make in order to balance that effort so that it actually supports a deepening presence. Why? So that wise effort supports wise mindfulness. We might know how it is for us when we really get curious about that, right? All the coming together of causes and conditions as best we can understand them. And sometimes mindfulness can feel mindfulness, let's just say mindfulness, can feel like we can misinterpret mindfulness as a kind of dry or cold experience, right? There's mindfulness-based everything out there. You can learn how to be mindful in ways that are really skillful, or learn how to be mindful in ways that are going to contribute to our collective demise, our personal demise, right? Yeah. It's just a matter of mindfulness itself doesn't have an ethical compass, but the efforts that we make and the beliefs and values and views that infuse our mindfulness practice then support if it's wise or not. So if mindfulness starts to feel cold or like it's something I need to do to improve my life, which that can be a skillful view, but it's not everything. If it starts to feel deeply individualistic or dry or cold or something like this, it might be because there's some kind of wrong effort or wrong view being infused in the mindfulness. So some way we're forgetting that all experience is interconnected, or we're forgetting that if the mind is striving and frantic, then that's actually what we're adding to our lives and to the world, right? And that's probably not what we want to add to our lives and to the world. Or it might be because we're not afraid to balance accepting things as they are. Or it may be because we're imbalanced, right? We're trying too hard to accept things the way that they are, and we're not remembering to feel the way that they are, how it actually feels to be here with this, right? So there's this, I've maybe read this before in this group, I don't know. It's a wonderful little passage from James Baldwin from Nothing Personal. And he says, "For nothing is fixed forever and forever and forever. It is not fixed. The earth is always shifting. The light is always changing. The sea does not cease to grind down rock. Generations do not cease to be born. And we are responsible to them because we are the only witnesses they have. The sea rises, the light fails. Lovers cling to each other and children cling to us. The moment we cease to hold each other, the moment we break faith with one another, the sea engulfs us and the light goes out." It's deeply moving every time I read or remember this. So this way of remembering that mindfulness is always interconnected. It's always about remembering that experience doesn't arise in a vacuum. It always experience always arises in relationship to other experience. Human beings always exist in relationship to other human beings. And when we forget that experience is always interconnected, that experience always arises in relationship to other experience, or to this interconnected web of reality that we live in, then our practice gets, we could say, colonized or co-opted by the forces of greed and appropriation, or the forces of apathy and a lack of care, right? Nothing is ours to own, but all of it is ours to take care of, right? See the difference there? So classically, wise mindfulness is learning to establish mindfulness, establishing the heart that cares in four ways, right? It's remembering that all of life flows through this body. So establishing mindfulness of body or mindfulness of form. And then the second way is to establish mindfulness of feeling, which is something we miss so often. And mindfulness of feeling is not what we might think like mindfulness of emotion, but it's about this really early nervous system move that with every contact with experience, right, there's an associated feeling tone or an associated, it's right in the beginning. It's so easy to miss. It's like, oh, this vibe is pleasant, or this vibe is unpleasant, or this vibe is neutral, right? And that's what we might call feeling tone. So the Buddha really encourages to, one, establish mindfulness right here in and with the body, and to establish mindfulness by noticing pleasantness or unpleasantness, or the trickier one is often neutral. What's neutral? Because what happens with neutral experience? Right? We don't notice it, right? Right? We turn away from it, or it's not exciting enough. So we're just not that interested. And then our worlds get, our perception becomes influenced by only those things that we're familiar with. Ooh. Right? We perceive only what we're familiar with, right? And once that perception, once we got it, like, oh, then we can notice it more easily. And so with anything that's not interesting to us, we just don't ignore it, or we just ignore it. So we want to learn to wake up to experiences that are not as charged on one of the ends, so that life becomes more full, right? We become more deeply present. And so when the Buddha instructed us to establish mindfulness of feeling tone, he's really encouraging us, okay, sweethearts, right? Let's wake up to the fullness of life, right? That'll help us understand more deeply. And then the third way to establish mindfulness, these are the four foundations. So the third way to establish mindfulness is to establish mindfulness of mind. Notice what's going on inside. It's tricky. So if you might have noticed that as we go through these, we're on the third one now, they get more and more subtle. It's easier to notice the body to some extent, right? We're not always embodied. We're not even embodied a lot of the time. But we can have some awareness that there's a body here, even if we don't feel it really deeply, right? So the body is gross, right? We know, can feel the weight of the body on the cushion right now, or heat, when we're hot, we know when we're cold, things like this. And then mindfulness of feeling tone is like that moment when something is like, ah, or ooh, right? That's feeling tone. And then it's even more subtle to start to notice mind states, that pushing and pulling, right? The mind that wants or is leaning in, or the mind that's holding back, right? The mind that's irritated or agitated about something, right? Subtly. Mindfulness of mind or mind states. And then the fourth one is mindfulness of dhammas, which is kind of the way I like to understand this is wisdom, mindfulness that evokes wisdom, right? So this may seem conceptual, because in this fourth foundation, the Buddha offers a number of lists, like it's where we find the Four Noble Truths and the six sense gates, the five aggregates of clinging. You don't have to know what all of these things are. the 7 factors of awakening, and the 5 hindrances, right? These are lists that help us orient to ways that we can develop healthy, skillful relationship to experience, and ways that kind of hijack our experience without us knowing it, right? The hindrances, doubt, sleepiness, excitement, right? We take these things so personally, like, oh, the energy's good, I'm doing it right, or I'm sleepy, there's something wrong with me. But we fail to just notice, oh, these are just ordinary hindrances. The mind is not that mindful, and the hindrances love that, and they sweep in and knock us off our feet, right? Oh, it's not that personal. So wisdom helps us when we can orient to this really useful list. Then we can start to develop a kind of wisdom that understands, oh, even these aren't personal, right? And in the 7 factors of awakening, if you've been taking Mark's Buddhist studies class on Monday nights, you'll know that he's been talking about these. And these are skillful places where the mind abides, right? Balancing tranquility and energy so that we find some stability, right? Finding joy. Yeah. So mindfulness of Dhammas, although it might seem conceptual, it's a lot more deeper than that. More deeper, a lot deeper. And so it goes from, the 3rd foundation of mindfulness, which is learning to become aware with mind states and more subtle energies of mind that collide with experiences of body and propel us through our lives. And then taking it a step further to see how these mind states evolve. When we understand that the mind is engaged in our lives, then what? Then we have some say, right? Over, oh yeah, okay, life is like this. It's like this, it's body and mind, right? And now I'm able to wake up to the body, and I can see the way that mind is engaged with body and how body and mind move us through our lives. I just, it's been a week now or so. I was leading a retreat at IMS, co-leading a retreat with some friends, wise Dharma teachers, one of whom is Kaira Jewel Lingo. Some of you might know her. She wrote a wonderful book called, I think the title is We Were Built for These Times, or We Were Made for These Times. And it's a great read. And she was using the term polycrisis when we were together. And some of you might be familiar with that. But just over and over and over, just that our Dharma practice was infused with this term polycrisis. One definition from the internet is a cluster of related global risks with compounding effects, such as the overall impact, such that the overall impact exceeds the sum of each part. Seems right, doesn't it? Yeah. And so when we live into that reality, right, wherever we are in relationship to that, each of us, we most necessarily have questions about, what does it mean to be present with this at this time of polycrisis? So sati is the Pali word for mindfulness. And sati sometimes can be translated as to remember, which again, I think is a little confusing, to remember. And one of the ways that I like that feels right to me to explore what sati actually is, what being mindful actually is to remember that this heart cares. We might not know what to do in every moment. We might not know the best move, or when the conceptual mind starts going with, oh my God, polycrisis, what now? What do we do? The mind can really get whipped up into a frenetic state of like And we know, though, that that energy, the energy of confusion, of moving around without actually being settled in our bodies and in our hearts, is probably not going to be the right medicine for helping us creatively and heartfully respond to our lives and to the times that we're living in. So to remember that this heart cares, right, can be a real grounding and protective force of mindfulness. And remembering is the hard part, right? But when we get good at just landing in a moment, for a moment, kind of letting everything go, all of the we shoulds and we need to and we have to, and what if we don't, all of that kind of energy that can take us far away from our bodies, right? If we can, for a moment, let that subside and just land, and this heart cares about this life, what does that feel like? Right? Just right now, just like, oh yeah, this heart actually does care. I do care about this life. I care so much about this life that I decided to come to carve out time to get in my car, to get ready, to make sure that things are okay at home before I leave, to come here for an hour and a half or so. Right? That's not a small thing. Or to set aside some time daily for our mindfulness practice, for a meditation practice. Right? That's not a small thing. Every time, we do something like that, it's often because this heart cares, right? Sometimes we do these things because they're habit, or because we're not really, our intentions might be mixed somewhat, right? Like we do it because we think we need to. But there's a bit of the heart, there's always some element of this heart wanting to be happy, right? And trusting in a deep way that this might help, that this might actually help me, help us do a little bit better, right? So what a wonderful thing to be able to do throughout our day, to wake up and go, like, we feel a particular way and go, oh yeah, I care about this life. What does that feel like? And just to see where we go from there. What comes next when we remember that we care about this life? Sometimes, find the reference. Sometimes the word ardency is used to describe this part of the Satipatthana Sutta, where the Buddha is talking about the 4 foundations of mindfulness. And the Buddha is instructing us to be, it's translated as ardency, ardent, right? To be ardent. And this word can, again, in moments kind of collide with our cultural conditioning, the way I was pointing to before, what we take in from the external world, what we've intuited from our family systems, right? And we can interpret the Buddhist teachings in a particular way, because sometimes it's translated as enthusiasm, right? Or zeal, or determination. And we take that, and mindfulness, that the Buddha's instructions on mindfulness and our understanding of effort, and they get all mixed up, right? And we go, oh yeah, I got to work really hard, right? But ardency can also mean a warmth of feeling. It's a kind of attunement. So how to be mindful is to be attuned and to feel, right? Or the word ardency can be translated as devotion. That moment when some of us have devotional practices. I do, not everybody, but I do. And it feels really useful to me to align with this heart that knows how to care and knows how to care about something deeply, right? And in a moment, of like, if you bow, or just sometimes pausing in front of our cushion, can be a useful way of honoring the depth of presence, like what we actually care about. So it's more than like I'm devoted to this practice, but in a moment of like just connecting, right, with something that we care about, like practicing, then we can feel that alignment with the deepest truth, right? It's where wise view then kind of moves through the whole path, links up with efforts and mindfulness, remembers that this moment of devotion, of connecting with the heart that cares and cares deeply about taking responsibility in this life so that we're not kind of giving ourselves a lot of out. Like, okay, I'm sitting on this cushion. Nobody's actually going to know that what I'm doing is complaining about my partner, right? I look so serene. But actually, I'm just criticizing everybody I know. Right? The smile on my face. Right? I don't know that. That's like this heart that aligns with, oh, yeah, it's my job to take care of this heart in this moment, right? If I want to create the kind of life I want to live in, if we want to do that together, if we care about our collective reality, then this actually matters. How I take care of this heart in this moment, right? So it can be that devotional aspect of remembering that, oh, sweetie, it's nobody's job but mine right here, right? And there are supports, thankfully, or it would be too hard to do, right? Without community, without teachings, without those of us who express our faith with each other, moving about, returning, showing up on time, and taking care to be in the room in a good way so that we can all do this together. Those are the supports that make it possible. We don't forget that. And then we care about that so much that we take it seriously when we're here, right? Or in a moment, not just when we're here, like when we're here, like when we're right here in our lives, when we're present with whatever we're doing, washing dishes, taking out the trash, driving to work, taking the bus, shopping for food, ordering food. Any of these moments are moments to remember what happens when I care about ardency, a full responsibility for what this heart is setting in motion right here, right now. I'll end with this little quote that came from Ajahn Suchito this morning in my email. This little, anyway, words of Ajahn Suchito. As our meditation practice develops, it becomes meditation without an object because it's not focused on any particular thing. Instead, it's attuned to the place where things arise. With that focus, there is the sensitivity to feel for balance, for harmony, or for any bias in attention. For example, when we're wanting something, hanging on, or avoiding, if we're attuned to the heart itself, then we can recognize those inclinations. There's something to be learned in all that arises, even experiences that we think are pathetic or useless or blameworthy. You learn to be patient, firm, and not get reactively involved with what arises. There's something to be learned from our tendency to try to dismiss certain kinds of experiences, something we have been doing all our life. Who is that? Who is it that doesn't want to meet their own heart? Who is it that doesn't want to meet their own heart? Well, thanks for your kind attention. Just sit for a few seconds and let go of the words. Okay, friends. Thanks so much for being here. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. Okay. Bye, Zoomers. Oh, I'm missing a piece, I think. There are small groups today. If you want to stay for small groups, Lisa will help you get established. Lisa's right here, our program host. And if you're on Zoom and would like to stay for small groups, there's someone to set up Lucy, there you
I'm
are.
here. Yes, I'm here.
Okay. You'd like to talk a little bit more.
You'll have to just make me co-host and